Okay, Boker Tov. Today's daf is daf Yutet, and we are picking up in the middle of a discussion of the what Stam Nedarim Lahachmir Perushan Lahakel, that a language of a neder that could be interpreted in one way, that even if in both ways the guy was trying to make a neder, which it seems like he was, or she was, but one of them is davar hanadur and the other is not a davar hanadur, so it matters what the word means. And at least the Mishnah seems to give cases where it was 50-50 how to interpret the word. We'll deal with cases where one is a more likely explanation than another. It says we will adopt a more strict interpretation, stamam lahachmir, but presumably, Perushan Lahakel, if the person were to say, no, I meant this one rather than that one, we would actually believe the person. So therefore, why don't we just always ask? So as we said, there could be two possible explanations. One is the person isn't around to ask. They made the thing forbidden to everyone and then they walked away, their thing. Or the other is that they really said, I don't know, I wasn't actually being that specific. I was trying to make a neder, because that's the point, of course, that David raises. If the person isn't trying to make an neder, then you don't have pivalibo shavin. I was trying to make it forbidden. I heard people use this language, or I meant whatever this language means, and I had no particular meaning. So then we would give it the stricter meaning. Okay, so that is the debate. That is the issue we have in the Mishnah, and then a debate at the end with Rabbi and Rabbi Yehuda about the difference in regions of Galil and Yehuda, what the sort of standard meaning of a particular word might be, chayrim and truma and so on. Okay, so now the Gemara picks up in the Gemara at the bottom of Yud Chet Amud Bet. That's non suffix nazirus lahakel. How can you say stam nedarim lahachmir if we say a suffix nazirus is lahakel and a nazirus is a type of a neder? So, and we're assuming that it would probably be a similar case where it's not clear what the word means. Okay, maybe the other types of suffix, but then we would have to explain why some sfeikas we go l'kula, some we go l'chumra. So the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Zera. So there's two ways of going here, right? One way of going, or three ways of going. One way of going would say that there's a difference between if there's a doubt and for other reasons as opposed to a question of the meaning of the word. The second way of going would have been to say that there is a difference between a nazirus and a neder. This may be the specific characteristics of nazirus. Hey, welcome back. Nice man. Hey. And thank you. And the third way, thank you so much. And the third way is which is what the Gemara is going to do. I find the first two ways more interesting, but what the Gemara is going to do is the third way, which is say it's a machlokas tonight. Okay, so let's take a look. So the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Zera lo kashra, ha Rabbi Eliezer ha Rabbanan. It's the debate of Rabbi Eliezer and the rabbis. The time we had a brisa, hamakdish chayato ubehemato. Somebody basically says all of my chayas will be hektish, or all of my behemoths will be hektish. We're reading the vav here as or behemato. Dish et a koi. So the koi, which is this hybrid between suffix. A koi is a suffix, something it might be a behemoth, mean bifnei atzmo. It's some type of a hybrid. What is it? I think between a deer and I forget what's a hybrid.
It's a type of suffix, I think, that you can't clarify by definition.
Well, that's the machlokas. Is it a suffix, right? Or does it mean bifnei atzmo? What does it say? There's deer and something else. Yeah. Okay, I don't know. Anyway, okay. Right. So it's some type of a crossbreed. It's some type of a crossbreed. All right, so the Gemara says, Rabbi Eliezer Omer lo hikdisha takoi. So the Chachamim say it is sanctified. We by suffix we'll put it into the chaya or behemoth category. And Rabbi Eliezer says it is not. It's a suffix. It's not in the category. Now the Ran, I forget Ran or Tosfos, one of them basically points out that actually Rabbi Eliezer holds that a koi is a min bifnei atzmo. So even if somebody said I am being makdish all my chayas and all my behemoths, the koi wouldn't be kadosh because it would be because it's in either category. Whereas the Chachamim say no. If you said that, it definitely would be kadosh. It's in one of those two categories. We just don't know which one. Okay, so therefore, if you say just chayas or just behemoths, it's not kadosh. If you say chayas and behemoths, it would be kadosh. Anyway, so what you see is here. There's a suffix. Why don't we say suffix l'chumra? So the Gemara says that must be a debate. Right? I mean, Rabbi Eliezer is Mako, but the Chachamim are Makdish, are Machmir. So that's the debate of Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim. Now again, maybe Rabbi Eliezer normally would say suffix l'chumra, but maybe he's just saying his idea by a koi because he thinks the koi is neither one or the other. But the Gemara somehow is understanding that Rabbi Eliezer's position is not unique to koi. It's not specific to his approach to koi. And he basically would say, if you're Makdish something and there's a doubt which category it falls into, whether concluded, we say it's outside of the category. And again, hektish is sort of seen here similar to neder. Let's remember that the whole nedarim draws on the model of hektish. So therefore, we think that this debate, what do you do if it's a suffix, is a debate of Rabbi Eliezer and Chachamim, and that explains why our Mishnah is machmir by a neder, and why the other Mishnah is mekel by a nazir. Not a difference between a neder and a nazir, but a general difference about whether we're machmir or mekel by suffix in these types of cases. Yes.
How can you have a chayet and not domesticated animal? What is it? What's the right to mean by that?
You can own deer. I mean, it's a min that's not domesticated.
No, this is a bedek abite anyway. You can't bring it as a korban.
Oh, that's what you meant. As a korban?
I did not mean that.
Okay, as a korban, fine too. Who says it's a korban? It's a donation of Bedek. Just because the min is not domesticated, like some people have, I don't know, snakes as pets or something. You know, some people have. So it doesn't mean that this in particular.
Yeah. It says it's different opinions, but a female goat and a male deer. I'm sorry, a male goat and a female deer.
Goat and a deer. Okay.
Wow.
Okay. All right. So now the Gemara says like this. Okay. So, so according to the Chachamim that say that a suffix about sanctifying your property is kadosh, they would say the same about making yourself into a nazir. Now the Gemara is signaling the fact that it recognizes that you could say there's a difference. I'm more ready to make my property kadosh than to make something about my own personal status. So maybe for making me a nazir, we would say it's suffix l'kula. But the Gemara says, no, we're going to assume it's all the same. So if they're machmir by property, the Chachamim, when you're sanctifying your animals, they'd be machmir by nazirus, if in a case of suffix. According to Rabbi Linzer, it says that even your property you're not including in any case of doubt. So gufe kol shekain lo ma'ilus feika. How much more so are you not including? Would you not include your person in the case of doubt? And in the case of nazirus, you would not want to. If there was suffix, you would not want to make yourself a nazir. So therefore, the debate we have by sanctifying the animals would be a parallel debate by making yourself a nazir. Although the Gemara signals the fact that it's aware that you could have made a distinction. And by the way, this is interesting because this actually could have been an answer, right? You have, basically, what's our problem? Stam nedarim lahachmir and suffix nazirus lahakel. So you could have said that's the difference. A neder is about objects. So just about the status of objects, we'll take the stricter interpretation. We'll make the objects usher. Whereas nazirus is about me and my status. So there we're going to be more lenient. We'll say a person will be more reluctant to define themselves as a nazir, and therefore if there's any doubt, we would say it's lahakel. So the Gemara signals that it's aware that you could make a difference between objects and persons, which is exactly the difference between a normal neder and a nazir, and that would have exactly answered its question. But for some reason it ignores that, and it wants to say it's a basic debate of Tanaim. Rabbi Eliezer says it's always not a problem, suffix l'kula, whether it's a neder or a nazir or a hekdesh, and the Chachamim say it's always strict. Whether neder, nazir, or hekdesh, it's always strict, and making it a debate of Tanaim. The other thing that needs to be said in addition to whether we're distinguishing between categories or whether we're making it a debate, is the idea that the Gemara is introducing this issue about what's your intent or what you would want. Right? Mayel inish nafshe lisveika, mayel mamone lisveika. Would you want to include yourself or your property in cases of doubt? Now, until it said that, I never in a million years would have thought that this is an issue of what you wanted. Meaning, if it's about what you wanted, that's the second discussion of Perush and Lahakel, right? But here, you're not telling us what you wanted. I would have thought that it's just a legal question. How do we interpret statements that are of ambiguous meaning, right? Do we give them the stricter interpretation or the more lenient interpretation, the more inclusive, more exclusive? So why it should matter? Well, you would have wanted this or you would have wanted that. You know, again, unless you're introducing the type of Perushan Lahakel as a speculating what that Perushan would have been. But it is interesting that the Gemara is now making that idea of what you would have wanted to do part of this conversation of Stamam Lahachmer, Stamam Lahakel.
That methodologically is part of a legal conversation. That is to say, if you have a legal text of authority, for example, not a statement, but a text, and the text is ambiguous, one way of clarifying is trying to go to the intent of the author. That's a theory.
So you're saying it's not because it's not saying like in this particular case we would say this is what you want, but we're basically saying we'll choose to always interpret these statements more narrowly or more broadly, because as a general rule, people when they're doing these types of things are intending either more narrowly or more broadly. All right, I hear that. That's a good point. That's a good point.
usually
Yes.
also hektish has its own rules, right? I mean, aren't we
Right. Well, all of
to-
these you could say there's a difference between Neder and Nozer and Hektik. That's why I'm throwing them all in the same category. Okay, so let's take a look. So rather than distinguishing between the categories, it is making it a machlokas tonight. So let's take a look. Amalei Abai. So Abai responded to Rabbi Zera. Gemayu Kimta was something Nazir Slahakel. Rabbi Eliezer. So you're now saying that this approach of Savik Nazir Slahakel is Rabbi Eliezer, who says this also by a core that he's being Mekel, and would say it by our Mishnah that a Neder would be Mekel, if there's a doubt. Ema Seifa, let's look at the end. Savik Bechoros, this is the same Mishnah that says Savik Nazir Slahakel. Says Savik Bechoros, if there's a doubt about whether an animal is a firstborn or not, a mother gave birth to twins, not a human mother, a cow, let's say, and you don't know whether the first one out was a boy or a girl. So you don't know whether this boy baby is a bechor or not, because only if the boy was the first one out is it a bechor. So what do you do with it? Oh, it could be a bechor adam about the issue of pigeons. Bein tmei, bein tahora, whether it's kosher or not kosher, because if it's a chamor, you would still have to do the ritual of pidyon, right? Of the egg, about the taking, what do you call it? And breaking the neck, exactly. Breaking the neck of the sheep. Excuse me, right? So, hamot tmei rabel avaraya.
the neck of the chamor.
The chamor, excuse me. Thank you. Thank you. You either give the sheep or you break the neck of the chamor. Thank you all very much. You were paying attention. Good. Okay. So anyway,
this was the easy part. So we were also
exactly. Okay. So if the Kohen wants his 5 shekel for my kid, or the Kohen wants to get my baby sheep or my baby calf, or if the Kohen wants the baby sheep in exchange for the baby donkey, in all those cases, I would say to him, prove that it really was a bechor.
There's no coin, just a coin anyway.
Well, fine, that's true, but the Gemara imagines also you could have all the Kohanim in the world, exactly, giving like what's it called, power of attorney to one particular Kohen. Anyway, even if there was one particular Kohen that had standing and was able to demand it, you would still say, it's in terms of who owns it, who has monetary rights. It's a doubt whether I owe you this bechor, and therefore go prove it to me. You can't prove it to me. I'm not giving it anything to you. That's in terms of choshen mishpat, of monetary rights. But now the question is, okay, I still have this baby calf. If it is a bechor, I'm not allowed to use it. A baby sheep, I'm not allowed to shear it or whatever. I have to, it has to be brought as a korban. So it's very nice that I wasn't obligated to give it to the Kohen. But now it's
goes in both directions.
But now it's a suffix not in choshen mishpat. Now it's a suffix in your day. Right? It's a suffix about how I'm allowed to use this animal. So that should be a biblical suffix. The suffix the right would need to be strict.
There's no practical difference for a person, right? If you don't do
there's no practical difference for a person, right? The Gemara says, the Tani Allah, we taught a break on this. Yasurin begiza v'avoda. You're not allowed to shear it or to work it. Okay, so anyway, so what do you see? So presumably this is the same Mishnah as Safek Nazir Slahakel, okay, which is presumably like a Rabbi Eliezer approach. And even though it says Safek Nazir Slahakel, we see that Safek Bechor, when it comes not to Dini Mamonis aspects, but to Isser and Heter aspects, we're being Machmir. So how is that consistent? Now, of course, the point is this had nothing to do with saying that Mishnah was Rabbi Eliezer. It's just a straight question. Why do we say Safek Nazir is Mekel, and why do we say Safek Bechor is Machmir? Right? Okay, so that's a pretty straightforward question. Nothing really to do with Rabbi Eliezer. What's the difference between Bechor and Naziris? So the Gemara says, Amar Le, he said back to him, Amai Kamadamis Kedusha B'Me'aleh Kedusha B'Bidei Adam. Why are you comparing a Kedusha that comes by itself to a Kedusha instilled by a person? If a Kedusha comes like this animal, this baby calf, is either Bechor or not, right? It's nothing that I imparted that Kedusha onto it. So we go to the normal principle that Safek D'Oraisa L'Chumra, right? Since it might be a Bechor, we have to be strict. I don't want to transgress any prohibitions, okay? Whereas that's a very different question when I'm instilling the Kedusha into an animal, or I'm making myself a Nazir, or making this loaf of bread forbidden, where the question is, it starts by, what did that language mean? How to interpret my words? And therefore, if we will adopt the principle that will interpret your words in a narrower scope, in a narrower interpretation, we'll say that the thing never became kadosh, right? You understand the difference? In one case, it's a question of facts. What were the facts? Did this animal, was the baby calf boy calf born first, or was the baby girl calf born first? There's no way of knowing. Based on one set of facts, it's definitely usher. Based on the other, it's definitely mutter. So it's a Safek D'Oraisa, I have to be strict. The other is not really a set of facts. We know what the facts are. I said, I'm makdish my chayas. I said a language that might have meant Naziris or not. There's no question to the facts. It's a question of law. It's a question of how do we interpret what those words mean, right? And therefore, if we adopt a legal principle that we're going to give those words a narrower meaning, then the thing was never kadosh. So there's no way of comparing the normal rule of Safek Deraisa L'Chumra to the question of Safek, about Safek Nedarim, Safek Naziris. All right, is that clear? Safek Deraisa L'Chumra it's a question of the facts, and you have to be strict. Safek Naziris L'Kula is the point about a legal question of what meaning do we give your words, and Rabbi Eliezer's position here, if identified with Rabbi Eliezer's the lenient, will say we give your words the narrowest meaning and not the broadest. Okay, so that wasn't the question. So the Gemara says, fine. If I've got a question, here's my question.
Could you say that they're both, I mean, if you wanted to make a parallel, they're both looking for a fact. In the one case, they're looking for a fact that's actually happening.
Right, and the other
one
you
they're looking for a fact. It's not a physical event, but it's still a fact.
What's the fact?
Well, that's what they're looking for.
No,
what happened in that man's mind?
Well, we're back to that, but that's not the point. The point is that if we know if he's going to tell us what happened in his mind, maybe that's Perush and Mahakel. Question is that we don't. I don't think that the principle of Stam Nadar Mahachmir is saying. I mean, I guess you're right. That could be what the Gemara means, or what the Havamina was. That Stam Nadar Mahachmir means we have to guess what was in his mind, and since we don't know, we have to adopt the scriptural interpretation. You could say that that's what it means, right? And that would be why Perush and Lahakel. If he tells us, then we don't have to guess, right? I don't understand it that way, maybe because I'm a little bit more of a formalist, and I understand it as no, and this is like actually the Ron said. The Ron said, I didn't have anything in my mind. I was just using the language that I've heard people use. So we need a principle of what the words mean, even regardless of what was in that person's mind, or even if that person says, I wasn't thinking of one meaning or another meaning. Okay? So it's not just a question of what was in his mind. It's a question of how we legally define what those words mean. Is that clear? Okay. All right. So now the Gemara says like this. Okay. If I've got a question, here's my question. Savig mashkin li tamei. This is the end of this Mishnah, part of this Mishnah, or the beginning of this Mishnah about Safek Naziris, and it says the following. So it lists all different types of Safek, right? So Safek Bachor, you get to keep it, but you have to be Machman how you treat the animal. Safek Naziris, you're Mekel. How about a completely different Safek? I stuck my hand, and my hand is Tamei, and I stuck it in, and I might have touched some liquid, and I might not have touched that liquid. Okay, what's the story? Is the liquid Tamei or not? So now the reason we're talking about liquid is, as we'll see, because why don't you just apply normal principles of Safek Tumah? Like Safek Tumah, we have a principle. Is it in a private domain, a public domain? There are other principles to guide. Well, one of the reasons here is because liquid is basically a category where it might not be a real biblical Tumah by liquids at all. So that's part of the reason we're identifying liquid. So I stick my hand in, I might have touched liquid or not. The halacha is, if it's about the thing itself becoming tamei, do I treat the wine as tamei? Let's say it was wine, then I have to be strict. If the wine is tamei. Li tamei, to become tamei itself, tamei. Li tamei acherim, now this wine is now going to touch other things. For that halacha, I'll say tahor. It's tahor. So I split my vote. Give it Rabbi Meir. That's what Rabbi Meir said. V'chein haya, who's singing this? Know that? Is that yours? Oh, it's okay. It's just okay. Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Eliezer barav, and Rabbi Eliezer would agree with it. So now the Gemara says like this. Before we go ahead and figure out how this is relevant to us, does Rabbi Eliezer really hold that if there's a doubt whether the thing becomes tamei, it's tamei? We have to be strict by liquids. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Ein Tuma Lamashkin. Kol ikar, that there is no biblical basis for saying that liquids become tamei. Teda, you should know. Sharei Rabbi Yossi ben Yoezer, ish Treda. Rabbi Yossi ben Yoezer, the man of Treda, testified. This is in Edios. Al ayel kimsa dachan or dachain, that a kimsa, a certain type of a locust, which is the name of it was ayel, or I don't know how to pronounce. Anyway, ayel. Ayal. Anyway, this type of a locust called an ayal was tahor. Dachain is the Aramaic for tahor, meaning that it's kosher, it can be eaten. Okay, the Almaskin Beit Mitbechaya. What? Right, exactly. Almaskin Beit Mitbechaya, and the liquids literally in the slaughterhouse, but it means in the Beis Hamikdash where they're always slaughtering animals. Tachein is also tahor, that you don't treat the blood that's coming out of all of the animals and all the liquids going around there. You don't assume that they will become tamei. And the reason is presumably what's that based on is the principle that tumas mashkin is only rabbinic, and since the tuma of liquids is only rabbinic, then in the Beis Hamikdash we're going to eliminate it altogether. We're going to go back to the biblical rule because you do not want to have all this tamei stuff, all the stuff susceptible for tuma, flying around in the Beis Hamikdash. So therefore, we're going to just go back to the biblical status. So the Gemara says. So you see that he says it's tahor. So how could he say here it's tamei? So meaning now, obviously that's the Beis Hamikdash. This is not the Beis Hamikdash. But the difference is that if this shows us that the whole status is rabbinic of liquids becoming tamei, and that's why we don't apply it in the Beis Hamikdash. Then also, if there's a doubt, we should be lenient. It should be the principle that a suffix d'Rabbanan l'kula, a doubt about a rabbinic issue, we're being lenient. So hani chalush Shmuel damar dachein milatamei acherim. Shmuel says that what Yossi ben Yoezer is saying is that the liquids of the Beis Hamikdash are pure in the sense that they do not make other things tamei, okay, but they themselves do become tamei. Shapir, it's good. That exactly actually maps onto what our ruling is, meaning that there's an opinion that, biblically speaking, liquids can become tamei, but they cannot make other things tamei. Now that's perfect. Because what did we say that if there's a doubt, if you touch the liquid, that it is itself is tamei, but it doesn't make other things tamei. So that's perfect. If we say that biblically it becomes tamei, but doesn't make other things, so there's a doubt. So for the biblical question of does it become tamei, we'll say yes, it's tamei. We'll have to be strict. For the rabbinic question, can it make other things tamei? We'll be mekil. Okay, that would work perfectly. Ella, but according to Rav, the Amar Dachein Mamash, that liquids biblically are tahor completely. So Michael Amemar, what can you say? Even though this is only rabbinic, he's being strict. Okay, fine. So that's an interesting question. Rabbi Eliezer is strict about the liquids becoming tamei, even though it's only rabbinic. Now, what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? The price of coffee at Safars, which is where our new coffee is coming from. Anyway, okay, so it's not clear, right? Big deal that we have Rabbi Eliezer who is being strict about liquids becoming tamei, which is a rabbinic idea. What does that tell us about why he can't hold that a language you use for a nazir should be lenient? Okay, so the Ran says,
you abstract this in general.
What does one have to do with the other? First of all, the difference to Gemara made, Truma Kedusha B'Me'atzma, Kedusha B'Me'atzma. We made a whole big distinction about a question of facts, which is measured one way, and a question of interpreting language, which is measured another way. So the Ran says there's some loose comparison here. If he's willing to be so strict that even in a rabbinic matter, although it is a question of facts, but even if in the rabbinic matter of touching liquids, he's going to be strict, then in a biblical matter of making yourself a nazir, if this guy's a machmir, this is like the way we think nowadays, but it's not a precise way of thinking. Oh, well, he's such a machmir. I know this guy doesn't open bottle caps on Shabbos. Of course he's going to be machmir about something else. Right? Who knows? Maybe that has to do with how he interprets that case, and this has to do with a completely different consideration. But this is the Gemara's idea. He's going to be machmi about touching liquids, which is drabanan. How could he be makil about suffix nazirus? So let's see what it answers. Not such a persuasive question for me, but let's see what it answers. So the Gemara says, Ella. So the Gemara says, you're right. Let's drop the whole Rabbi Eliezer approach. Anyway, the whole Rabbi Eliezer approach might have had to do more with his position about what a koi is than about anything else. Okay, so let's just forget the Rabbi Eliezer approach. We're back to our issue, which is our Mishnah says that a neder is a doubt is we're machmir, and a nazir a doubt we're makil. And let's see what we can do with this. Ella, here's how we're going to explain the difference between the Mishnah, those two Mishnayot. How Rabbi Yehuda, how Rabbi Shimon. It's a debate of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, and now here is specifically at least about a nazir, so it's a lot closer to home. Titania, we talk in Brisa, in nazir. Hareni nazir in yesh bekrizeh, or bekarize, I guess, mea kur. Okay, I am a nazir if in this big pile of grain there's 100, liters of grain. Okay? Then you went to measure, and you found that somebody had stolen the grain.
I mean, there
So
was
so there's
100 before?
no, there's no way of knowing. There's no way of knowing. So you have a doubt. You made it your Nazir's on a Tanai, and you have absolutely no way that you will ever find out whether that was Tanai was satisfied or not.
But there's no creed there.
So the Gemara says, no.
Meaning what was there? You mean?
Well, yeah, exactly. Okay. So the Gemara says, what's the halacha? Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Matir, you're not a Nazir. Rabbi Shimon Oser, Rabbi Shimon says you are a Nazir. So basically, here's a question of Safek, and it's a debate of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. So that would be the opinion that says a Safek Nazir is Lahakel would be Rabbi Yehuda. The position that says Stam Nedarim Lahachmir, again, we're assuming Nazir and Neder is the exact same. That would be Rabbi Shimon. So the same way there's a debate between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon about a Safek Nazir, we assume it would be the same debate about Stam Nedarim, Lahachmir or Lahakel. Rabbi Yehuda says when there's a doubt we're lenient, and Rabbi Shimon says when there's a doubt we're strict. Now again, I want to say that there's a big difference between those two cases. There's a big difference between the question of you don't know if a condition was met, okay, but it was clear the person wanted to be a Nazir, and the question about how to interpret the language. How to interpret the words, to interpret them in their narrow, in a meaning that leads to a, I shouldn't say narrow or broad, but a meaning that's a binding meaning or non-binding meaning. Okay, so that again, one could be just a question of a legal point of how we're going to choose to interpret vague statements. The other could be, what do you do when it was clear what the person wanted to do, but you don't know if the conditions were triggered? You could come out l'chumra in one place and l'kula in the other. There's no real logical reason, to say that they're the same question. But the Gemara is putting them together, and therefore saying that those are making. There's a opinion that's always makel, be makel by nazir, makel by neder. There's opinion of Rabbi Meir that would be strict by nazir, strict by neder. Yes. You wanted to ask something?
I was so busy trying to ask you what I wanted to ask you that the answer was what you just said.
Okay, fine.
Please repeat it.
Yes, I said the Gemara sees these as the same question, whether we're strict or lenient in the question when we have to decide what the words mean, and whether we're strict and lenient if we don't know if the condition was triggered. And we assume that Rabbi Yehuda, who is lenient by the condition case in a Nazir, would be lenient by Nedarim, where there's a question about what the words mean, and Rabbi Meir, that's strict by the case of the Tanai by Nazir, would give the strict meaning of words in cases of Nedarim. Okay, so we're putting Nazir and Neder in the same category. We're putting the question of a condition is met and the question of how to interpret the words in the same category, and we're assuming that there's a maker position and a machmir
Right.
position.
So when you're saying that you have a problem with the question because it's two different cases,
Yes.
My question is, so which would you say which is which?
So I said you could go either way. I could see saying as a legal principle, I'll interpret the words, in a non-binding way. But if you definitely were trying to create a Nazirus and there was a doubt if it was met, and it's like a suffix doraisa l'chumra, right? So I could say like that. And I could say the reverse. As a legal principle, I'll assume that the words always have a binding meaning. Like it's sort of like enot motzi var l'vatala type of thing. I'll always give them a binding meaning. Where if there's a doubt if a condition was met, maybe there'll be a principle that that Nazirus cannot take effect unless it's clear. You could go either way. All right. Anyway, but the Gemara says that it wants to see that it's a debate about being a suffix by Nazirus and by Neder, and it's all the same debate. Okay, so the Gemara says like this: the Rami Rabbi Yehuda. Now we're going to show a contradiction of Rabbi Yehuda against himself. So mi amar Rabbi Yehuda lo ma'ili nafshei l'sfeika. Now again, the Gemara framing it in this way of whether a person wants to or whatever, or whether does Rabbi Yehuda really say the Rabbi Yehuda that's lenient here by the case of the Tanai by the pile of grain, right, and that you're not a Nazir. So we'll say the logic behind it is you would not want to put yourself into a area of doubt. Meaning, so you would only want to be a Nazir. Here's the logic behind it that the Gemara is spelling out. Again, more getting into what's in your head than as a legal principle. You would only want to be a Nazir if it was unequivocal. And therefore, since it remains a doubt, we would say you did not want the condition to be binding. Okay, and that explains it. And similarly, if you said a language that was a doubtful language, you would not want it to be binding if there was some doubt in the language. Okay, so that's the logic. So does Rabbi Yehuda really say that a person will not put themselves into a place of doubt? V'raminahi, and we'll ask you on this. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Stam Truma Yehuda, the end of our Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda says that if you just say the word Truma in Yehuda, Asura, it's forbidden, because there could mean Trumas Halishka or Trumas Hagoren, right? Galil Muteres. And in the Galilee, it's permissible. Because in the Galilee, when they say the word truma, they never refer to trumas halishka. Trumas halishka is a less common phenomenon. If they wanted to say trumas halishka, they'd say trumas halishka. The word truma for them only means the grain truma, and that is a non-binding word. So taima the ein makirin. The reason it's not binding is because for them the word truma only means the truma of the grain. Hamakirin, if they knew of two trumas, they knew of the truma of the grain and they knew of the truma of the Beis Hamikdash, of the trumas halishka. So the word could mean one, could mean the other. Asurin, it would be forbidden, which basically means that if you read the Mishnah, you'll see the Mishnah we just read that Rabbi Yehuda buys into the principle in our Mishnah of Stam Nedarim Lahachmir. Right? Remember, because Rabbi Yehuda debates, well, yes, Stam Nedarim is Lahachmir, but in certain regions where it can only have the lenient meaning, it'll be lenient. So truma in the Galilee can only have the lenient meaning, it'll be lenient. But the general rule is Stam Nedarim Lahachmir, right? So how can you say that Rabbi Yehuda, even though he's lenient by a Nazir, it's not a general approach of leniency in a case of doubt. He clearly is the author of the Mishnah, or he clearly agrees to the principle of the Mishnah that Stam Nedarim is Lahachmir. Yes.
The fact that he makes that distinction
proves that in a case where if truma only means truma sagoren, then he's lenient. But if it could mean one or the other, he's machmir. So he actually holds of Stam Nedarim machmir. So Amar Rava, top of the Yotet Amud Gabe Kri Keri Katsavar Kosher Sveiko Chamor Mevadai Lomal Nafshuli Sveika. Here's the difference. Again, I find this Gemara, I just have to tell you, so frustrating. There were so many distinctions it could have made between a neder and a nazir, between language as opposed to other areas of doubt. Here it makes it all about whether you would have been wanted to have, what you would have wanted to do in a case of doubt. Okay, so here it says like this. By the pile of grain, we'll say, it would be worse to be a suffix nazir than a vadai nazir. Why is a suffix nazir worse than a vadai nazir? Because a vadai nazir is over at the end of 30 days. What does a suffix nazir do at the end of 30 days? Brings a korban? No. Can't bring a korban. Suffix chulun bazara. Can't bring a chatas, right? And whatever the korban has to bring. So a suffix nazir can't end his naziris.
Ever?
Now the Ran points out.
30 days?
The Ran points out that in gilach al echad mishlosh and yatsa, that if you bring like a shlamim or an ola, which is one of the three korbanos of a nazir, you could also end your naziris. Okay, but at least anyway, lechatchila it would be problematic. Okay, because you would not be able to bring all your korbanot.
So even if you said, I want to be a nazir for 30 days or whatever it is, one of these ways that we're not sure.
Yeah.
So we're saying Mi'ikar Din, he can never end it?
Well, that's because the Gemara is understanding this. Well, let's take a look. So let's say exactly. So let's take a look. Because I think a suffix is worse than being a vadai. You would not want to enter into that doubtful category. Because by a nazir vadai korban and he goes ahead, he brings his korban, he shaves his head, and the korban is eaten. But by a suffix he can't. So what does it mean? It means the following. Rabbi Yehuda would say, and then again, this gets us again not to a legal principle, but to just the principle of, well, it's a suffix. Are we machmer or make it by a suffix? We don't know. Let's just play it safe type of an approach. So there it's understanding that basically by a neder, he says, Stam Nedarim Lahachmir. We don't know what it means, so we'll be strict. Okay, we'll say it's usher. Whereas by a nazir, we don't know what it means. We don't know whether it takes effect or not by the case about the Tanai. We're not going to be strict. Because if we're going to be strict, he'll be totally stuck. He'll be meaning it won't be strict and we'll say he's a vadai nazir. We'll be strict and say he's a suffix nazir. Okay? And a suffix nazir is going to be in a terrible situation. So we will say in that case, he never would have wanted it to have been binding me besuffic. Because to have been binding besuffic would have put him in an impossible situation.
Because he still has to keep all the minhagim here, right?
Exactly. So if there was any doubt whether it was binding, he definitely would have wanted it to have not been binding. Whereas in the case by a neder, even if there was some doubt, he would have wanted it to have been binding at least misafek, which is now funny. Now it sounds like whether it's going to be binding or not, it's not a decision it's binding, and when it is binding, it's vadai. No, should we say that it's binding misafek or not? So by a neder, we'll say it's binding misafek, right? So let's say the guy said one of these languages by a neder, and then he violated his neder. Would we give him lashes? Maybe not. We're saying it's binding misafek. We don't know, but we'll be strict. But by a nazir, we'll say he never would have wanted to that type of a possibility because of all of the consequences, and clearly it would not be binding. Okay, so that's his way of resolving it. So by the way, let's just take a step back and appreciate what the Gemara now just said. Now we have an answer, right? The whole thing started with a question that the Mishnah said, Safek Nedarim Lahachmir. We have a Mishnah that says Safek Naziris Lahakel. But now we actually have a better answer. Forget Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. A Neder we're Machmir on and a Nazir we're Mekel. You know why we're Mekel by a Nazir? It's not a debate of Tanayim. Because a Nazir, who wants to be a Safek Nazir? So that's why Safek Naziris is Lahakel and Safek Nedarim, right, is Lahachmir. Right? Remember, the Gemara is putting Neder and Nazir in the same category and making it a debate of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. But now what it really is introduced is Rabbi Yehuda contradicts himself. He's strict by a Neder, he's lenient by a Nazir. Because you're prepared to be a Safek Neder, you're prepared to live by. You're not prepared to live by a Safek Naziris. Okay, great. That's the answer. That's why Stam Nedarim is Lahachmir and Stam Naziris is Lahakel. You don't need to make it a debate of Tanaim anymore. Okay, so now the Gemara continues. Amalei Rav Huna Bar Yehuda l'Rabba. So Rav Huna Bar Yehuda said to Rabba, Amar Hareini Nazir Olam Mai. What about if he made this condition and he said, if there's so much, whatever gallons or whatever liters of grain, then I will be a Nazir forever. Okay, so then you could say there's no difference between being a Vadai Nazir Olam and a Savig Nazir Olam. Either way, right? He would. He's never gonna. His Naziris won't end. So in that case, why don't we say Sfeiko L'Chumra in that case? Because there's no worse being a Savig Nazir Olam. Right? So maybe we do, but since it didn't distinguish, we assume it wouldn't matter. So Amarle, Nazir Olam Nami Sfeiko Chamer Mivadai. No, even in the Nazir Olam, it's worse to be a doubtful Nazir Olam than a definite Nazir Olam. Why? Dilu Vadai, a definite Nazir Olam, there's a halacha. Hichbit Sa'aro, Mekil Batar. That if the hair gets too heavy, he can actually trim
like
it.
Avshalom?
Okay,
right?
Yeah, I guess. Maybe Shalosh Behemot. You bring the behemoth that you would normally bring to end it, but you wouldn't end it, but somehow you would be allowed, l'chatchila. It's a very bizarre halacha. I mean, where do you get this in the Psukim? But Chazal understood that if you have to live with this for your life, then you're allowed by bringing the korbanot, it gives you a license to trim your hair. Okay, to at least lighten it a little bit if it gets to be too heavy. Okay, the ilu sfeiko low, but not by a suffix. Why couldn't you do it by a suffix? Because it's a special halacha by a Nazir Olam. Well, actually, I don't know why you can't do it by a suffix. Because
Maybe
if you are...
of Chulun Lazar?
Oh, right, thank you. It would be the Chulun Lazar point, right. So it would be a Nazir, a normal Nazir who was a suffix, who just, because he was a suffix, couldn't end his Naziris, we wouldn't let the person shave because we'd say you might not be, if you're a Nazir, you're not a Nazir Olam. Only a Nazir Olam has the leniency to get a haircut. You're not a Nazir Olam. You're a 30-day Nazir who doesn't know whether you can end who's not able to end his Naziris. Okay, but this case is you're either a Vadei Nazir Olam or a Suffolk Nazir Olam. So I think you're right. The reason a Suffolk Nazir Olam can't do it is because to do it you need to bring the korbanot.
Right. So I was thinking,
so
the next question then.
Yes.
Let's say you said not that. You know what I mean?
What do you mean not that?
Like like other biblical models, right? That they were never able to do it.
The next question, Gemara. Amar Hareini Nazir Shimshon Mai. Okay, so there's this category called Nazir Shimshon, right? Because Shimshon never cut his hair. So anyway, what's Nazir Shimshon? Nazir Shimshon is very bizarre. On the one hand, you're allowed to become a Tamei L'Mason if this concept has Nazir Shimshon, because Shimshon killed people. Right. So it's quite amazing. Like the Torah doesn't have this category, right? But we see it in Tanakh. Shimshon was a Nazir, and we see that A, he could never cut his hair, and B, that he could become Tamei to dead people. So therefore, from there we learn out that there's this concept called Nazir Shimshon, where you can become tummy to dead people, but you can never cut your hair, even if you're a Nazir, or whatever, right? Even if you're a Nazir Olam. So if somebody made this condition, and if this condition is met, I'll be a Nazir Shimshon, there's no worse being a Vadai Nazir Shimshon or a Savig Nazir Shimshon. Either way, you'll never be able to do anything to lighten your hair and your Naziris. So in that case, why shouldn't we say the Tanai is binding? Amalei Nazir Shimshon Lo Tanya. Give me a break. We're not addressing cases of Nazir Shimshon. Maybe if somebody said Nazir Shimshon, maybe you're right. Maybe it would be binding. But since when is the Mishnah going to be talking about a case of a Nazir Shimshon? So Amarlei, Amar Avada Bar Ava Tanya Nazir Shimshon. Avada Bar Ava said actually we have a Breita that actually says this exact scenario of if there's 100 core, then I'll be a Nazir Shimshon, has a Breita that gives the scenario with Nazir Shimshon, and still has Rabbi Yehuda saying it's not binding. And according to you, it should be binding because there's nothing worse about being a doubtful Nazir than a definite Nazir. I'm like, Tanya. Okay, if you got a brisa, you got a brisa. But I still don't think it makes sense. Which basically means like either to machlokas tanayim or about whether we would say it. Or I never heard of that brita. But fine, whatever. You got a brita, but I really am not persuaded. All right. Anyway, Rav Amar. Okay, so now what do we have? We basically have an answer that is we have a debate by Nazir whether it's binding in a case of safek. Okay, so the Mishnah that says Safek Nazir Lahakta was certainly Rabbi Yehuda, who says it's not binding in case of Safek. We wanted, but we can't say that that's the same issue of the debate of Nazir by Neder, because the same Rabbi Yehuda that says Stam Nedarim Lahachmir says Stam Nazir Lahakta. So in the end, what the Gemara has wound up saying is not that it's a debate of Tanayim, but it's a difference between Neder and a Nazir. By a Neder, you're okay with it being Asr Mitzafek. By a Nazir, you would never want to become a Nazir Misafek, and therefore we'll always interpret it in the more lenient way. Yes?
But can these be repealed, these kind of statements?
Yeah, you can go to a Chacham and get a heter, right?
The other thing, I'm still having difficulty with the concept of why somebody would make such a severe statement and base it on chance. In other words, what's their real intention?
Well, you're right. I mean, it might sort of be like the opposite. Like we're arguing, and we're saying, like, I am telling you, there was so much grain in there. There must have been 100 cores. You're crazy. There wasn't more than 50 core of grain in there. If there weren't 100 core of grain in there, then I'll be a Nazir. So there could be something like that. Like it's more, it's less wanting to be a Nazir and more wanting to win an argument.
Okay. I was thinking like this guy's serious.
Right. I don't know. Yeah.
If he really wants it,
right.
He would not want to take the chance.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's really interesting. So we don't.
I don't know. You're right. I mean.
So we really don't use it like context at all. If you're like, you're just saying like Dormishal Kuzma.
Well, that's an interesting question. That might be a Piva Levo Shavin type of a thing, and maybe we would, okay? And we'll actually get to that, Midrei Tos and Midrei Havai and whatever. So we'll get to things like that, actually, where exactly that. You're making it as an exaggeration. Okay, so let's take a look. All right, so now the Gemara continues. It says like this. Rabbi Yehuda, okay. Itan, Rav Ashi Amar, he Rabbi Yehuda Mishum Rabbi Tarfin. That is the position, is that of that a Nazir is that by a 7 Nazirs will go Lakula is not Rabbi Yehuda's own position. Rabbi Yehuda is Stam Nedarim Lahachmir, and he would actually say Stam Nazirs Lahachmir. So what's the supposition by that grain that we're makil? That's Rabbi Yehuda saying it in the name of Rabbi Tarfon. The time we turn in Brisa, Rabbi Yehuda Mishum Rabbi Tarfon Omer. Ein echad mehem nazir lefi shelo nitna naziris el lahafla'a. That basically you have a case which was two people were going down the road. Chaim and I were walking down the road, and we saw somebody in the distance. I said, Chaim, that looks like Michael there. And Chaim said, you're crazy. That isn't Michael. So I say, I'm a Nazir if that is Michael. And Chaim says, I'll be a Nazir if that isn't Michael. Okay, so one of us has got to be a Nazir, right? There's only two sets of possibilities in the world, A and non A. Okay, so the halacha is, so says Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rabbi Tarfon, neither of us is a Nazir, whether whoever it is. Okay, why? It says each isha ki yafli lindor neder nazir. Isha ki yafli lindor neder nazir lahazir lahashem. Okay, and what does yafli mean? Yafli means like to enunciate, to articulate. It actually becomes a word that, as I've told you at the beginning, hafla'ah means sort of things that are created through speech acts. Neder, shvua, naziris, hekdesh even is hafla'ah. Anyway, but here it's understood to mean that it is unambiguous, right? It's articulated and unambiguous, and therefore precise. So therefore, if there's any doubt at the time it was made, even though, from God's eye, there was no doubt. It either was or wasn't Michael. It wasn't even about something in the future. It was about something in the present, like the pile of grain. Just we didn't know. If it wasn't clear at the moment it was accepted, it's not binding. In a way, maybe that's reflecting David's point. Like, if you got to be serious about this, right? So if there's any doubt, it's not binding. And this, by the way, is the legal principle, right? So there's a legal principle of Safek Naziris Lahakel. It's not whether you want it. It's not what was in your mind. It's not what whatever. Exactly. It's the principle that Nazirus does not take effect unless it's black and
This
white.
second Nazir is probably a lot shorter, right?
Yeah, you wish. Okay, Ihachi says the Gemara. So that's why. So basically, Rabbi Yehuda himself could be machmir and say stam nedarim lahachmir. Now, what is the Gemara saying? Is the Gemara saying stam nedarim lahachmir, but stam naziris lahakel because naziris is different? Naziris has a special requirement of kiyafli. It doesn't exactly sound like that. It sounds like there's two opinions out there. There's an opinion that safek l'kula kiyafli, that applies by nazir. That's in the name of Rabbi Tarfon, not Rabbi Yehuda himself. Rabbi Yehuda, name of Rabbi Tarfon, and maybe that applies to neder as well. And maybe by neder we would also be makil based on that principle. And then there's a position that rejects it by neder, maybe rejects it by nazir. So rather than making the neder-nazir distinction, which is the most obvious one, and the one the Gemara seemed to have made before, here it again seems to be falling back into this debate of Tanoim position. So let's read this, okay? So the Gemara says like this. Why did it say that you went and there was not, you couldn't measure the grain? Even if you could measure the grain, right? Since you didn't know at the time, remember you made I'll be a nazir if there's so much grain. Since you didn't know at the time, it should not be binding. It doesn't matter. I thought it was Michael. It turned out to be Michael when I made that thing. But I'm not a nazir because I didn't know at the time. Okay? Even if you thought you knew, you're right. What do you mean I didn't know? I did know. But nevertheless, it wasn't somehow clear to everyone. Okay? That's a good point. It's not enough that I say I knew. Right? I told you it was Michael. I saw him. No, it wasn't clear to everyone, and therefore it's not a Naziris. Okay, so if that's true, even if you go ahead and you measure the grain, you shouldn't be a Nazir. So why say it was stolen or lost? You're right. According to Rabbi Yehuda, that says you're not a Nazir, even if you measured it and saw there was 100 core, you wouldn't be a Nazir. But it's telling you a chiddush for Rabbi Shimon. Even though it's not around, and therefore A, it wasn't clear at the time. B, you have no way now of knowing whether the condition was met. Nevertheless, that you are still considered a Nazir out of doubt. You are willing to become a Nazir out of doubt. Okay, so to tell you the strict position, but really the bigger chiddush would have been the more lenient position. So bottom line, what's the Gemara saying? Is it saying, Stam Nidar Lahachmir, Stam Naziris Lahakel? You could say it's a Neder Nazir distinction, and for one of two reasons. Either because of Lomayel Inish Nafshe Lisveika, nobody wants to be a Nazir Misafek, but something could be a Neder Misafek, or because Kiyafli, it's a special Naziris idea. Or what the Gemara seems to be saying at the end is it seems to be not saying Naziris is different, but again going back to this debate of Tanaim. There's some Tanaim that require that everything be black and white, unambiguous, and there if it's not binding. They say it by Nazir, that's Rabbi Tarfon, and maybe presumably they would say it by Neder as well. And then there are others that don't say that and say that if there's a doubt, it will be strict. That's Stam Nidar Lahachmir. Maybe we would also say Stam Naziris Lahachmir. Again, it seems much easier to say Nazir and Neder distinction than to put them all in the same category, but that seems to be the approach that the Gemara is doing. And I again want to repeat the point that logically you could easily make a difference between the question of how do you interpret a statement and language and a question about whether a condition is met or not. Those also very much could be different types of issues. Okay, so let's now take a look. Let's just finish up to the end of the daf. We'll hold off any questions until we finish the daf. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Stam Truma B'Yehuda. Okay, this is going to be pretty straightforward. I mean, it says that Rabbi Yehuda says that Stam Truma is in Yehuda is going to be strict because it could mean Truma Salishka. In the Galilee, it only can mean Truma of grain, and therefore we're going to be lenient. So the Gemara says, Hamakirin, if in the Galilee they were aware of Truma Salishka, so there would be an equal doubt, Asurin, it'd be forbidden, because Rabbi Yehuda agrees that Stam Nedarim is Lahachmir, right? We've made that point before. The Gemara says, Alma Safek L'chumra, if there's a doubt, we're strict, Stam Nedarim Lahachmir. Ema Seifa, let's look at the end. Stam Charami B'Yehuda Mutarna B'Galil Asurin. This is still Rabbi Yehuda speaking. The word Cherem, in Judea, it's permissible, and in the Galilee, it's forbidden. In the Galilee, the word cherem cannot mean cherem kohanim. It only means cherem to the base of mikdash, so it's forbidden. Whereas in Yehuda, the word cherem can mean cherem kohanim, and cherem kohanim is not a term for a neder, and therefore we are going to be, what are we going to say in Yehuda? We're going to be lenient, because the word could mean cherem kohanim, but here's the problem. Who cares if it could mean cherem kohanim? It also could mean cherem to the Beis Hamikdash. So just because in Yehuda it might have the lenient meaning, but it also might have the strict meaning. So why are we being lenient in Yehuda? Is that question clear? Right? When we dealt with Truma, we said in Yehuda, Truma could mean either the strict meaning or the lenient meaning. Truma Salishka or Truma Hagoret. So we give it the strict. Stam Nedarim Lahachmir. Now he's saying, when you use the word cherem in Yehuda, it could have the strict meaning, it could have the lenient meaning. The lenient meaning is cherem kohanim, and we're going to be lenient. Why are we going to be lenient? If it could have either meaning, we should be strict. Okay? So the Gemara says, Almas feka l'kula. It looks like in Yehuda, if it could mean, cherem could mean both possibilities, we'll be lenient. Why are we lenient? Amar Baya, Sefer Rabbi Linzer Bar Tzadok. You're right. The last line is not Rabbi Yehuda. The last line is a position of Rabbi Linzer Bar Tzadok that actually says, Safek Nedarim Lahakel. Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer Stam Truma Yehuda Asura. Here we have Rabbi Yehuda saying that the word Truma in Yehuda is strict, because in Yehuda could mean Truma Salishta. Rabbi Eliezer Bar Tzadok Omer Stam Charamim Begalil Asura. It's Rabbi Eliezer Bar Tzadok who says that in Galil Chayim is Asur, but in Yehuda Chayim would be permissible, presumably because it could mean both things, and actually Rabbi Eliezer Bar Tzadok would be saying Stam Nedarim Lahakel. So of course the irony is, we went through this whole sugya before trying to figure out Stam Nedarim Lahakel, who it's going like, and the Gemara in the end seems to point that, hey look, there's a Rabbi Eliezer Bar Tzadok that seems to say, implicit in his statement is Stam Nedarim Lahakel. So we just could have said it was all going according to him, which sort of the Ran says. Of course, the other possibility is you could say no. In general, he agrees Stam Charamim Lahachmir, Stam Nedarim Lahachmir, but maybe he just says that in Yehuda the word Cherem is not a suffix. The word Cherem only means Chermei Kohanim in Yehuda, right? You could have made the argument, right, that in Yehuda it's not like it also means Chermei Kohanim, and we're making. You could have said in Yehuda it's so prevalent to do Chermei Kohanim that if you wanted to say Chermei Mikdash, you'd say Chermei Mikdash. But Cherem by itself only means Chermei Kohanim. But the Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara seems to say that Rabbi Eliezer Bar Tzadok is being lenient in Yehuda because he would say Stam Nedarim Lahakel. So after going through that whole long other discussion, actually we find that there's an opinion that actually says, right, that Stam Nedarim is Lahakel.
But how could you say that it's Doraisa?
What?
But how could you say that?
What do you mean? That it's Doraisa, same like by Nazir? Like what we introduced by the idea by Nazir, right? That Lahafli, and that principle could apply to Nedarim as well.
So that was what I was going to ask earlier, because